The backbones of scrolls are to be cut counterclockwise. This helps with consistency in cutting, as with right-handed engravers, the graver naturally points in a counterclockwise direction. Left-handers will do just the opposite. The backbone is the main scroll line, or the line upon which all of the other elements grow from. It is the most important line of the entire scroll, and must be drawn and cut perfectly. In this transfer design, I'm cutting the backbones with a straight up and down cut. All of the other cuts will be beveled. With experience, you'll be able to feel when the scroll backbone is cutting well. It's not something I can describe, but it's something I can sense and feel when the spiral is cutting as it should. If the graver strays a bit, I will know it and make an immediate correction that hopefully can't be detected in the finished work. At some point, the graver surrenders and lays at the master's feet, waiting to be called into service, and delivers breathtaking results. It takes time, patience, and lots of practice for it to become an extension of your hand, and not the unpredictable beast it is when you're learning to tame it. The inside elements are now being cut, and I'm beveling all of my cuts to the inside of each element. You can see that my cuts are bold and strong. This makes for bold engraving with plenty of character, as opposed to thin, shallow cutting that can be flat and lifeless. Of course, you can only cut as deeply as your control allows, but I encourage you to push yourself in that regard. The best engravers get into the steel without fear, producing stunning results. Feel free to follow along, pausing the video to replicate my cuts, then resume. By now you should understand that my cutting direction is almost always thin to thick, and knowing that, you can quickly determine the cutting direction of any of my cuts simply by looking at them. Completely different. What you're seeing on your screen now, under high magnification, is something we could only dream of back when I started. Those who were fortunate enough to receive help or training at a bench could only look over a shoulder and examine the work under a loupe and try to connect the dots later when it was finished. Now you can clearly see every cut and every nuance and detail in the entire process, which enables you to produce beautiful results 10 times faster than we could back in the Dark Ages. Wipe off any remaining transfer so you only see the engraved lines, and you should note that the scroll backbone lines are the only cuts that don't vary in width and depth. You should always double check your graver before shading. Of course, it needs to be sharp for every operation, but a very slightly dull graver may go undetected when cutting outlines. Using the same slightly dull graver to cut shading isn't something you want to do, so be sure it's freshly sharpened. I don't want you to assume it's okay to use dull gravers, because that's not the case at all. I'm just saying that a graver that's been used to cut a lot of outlines may experience wear that may not show until you shade with it. Take a short break and resharpen before you do your shading. Shading always follows the flow and growth of the scroll. I'm showing you where the lines go so you will begin to develop a feel for where to put them in your own designs. I hope that you will cut this scroll pattern numerous times, referring to the video or a photo of the finished work. Expect to see improvement each time you engrave it. I can still remember being a beginner and one side of an engraved knife or gun being better than the first. It's a great feeling to see your skills improving. As in a previous chapter, the shading lines start micro-thin and converge to create a dark shade where there's no white space between the cuts. Notice how I leave a bit of white space between this first cut and the edge of the element. Without this bit of white space, this element can blend in with the previous one where the shading becomes dense and dark. Done this way, there's a good separation of elements as opposed to an overly dark area with no separation. Part of your homework is to study other engravers' shading. Make use of a pencil and a sketch pad and copy elements that appeal to you. Here are a couple of pages from one of my sketchbooks where I recorded different elements that I like. Your sketchbook is a great place to practice design and shading. If your goal is to be a casual engraver, there are plenty of designs which can be transferred and engraved. If you wish to truly excel in the engraving arts, drawing should become a part of your daily routine. Many of the elements in this scroll are of similar shape, so once you learn where the lines go, it's a matter of repetition. My cuts on the last part of the scroll start in the center and terminate at the end of the backbone line. A couple of small cuts complete the knob in the center of the scroll. The outside or outer work elements, as they are often called, are shaded next. You'll notice that my shading changes direction from counterclockwise to clockwise, because that's the way this element grows, and good shading follows its growth. Note that the outer work elements are now transitioning into the inner elements of the next scroll. Once again, a benefit of my lines being bold is that the chips break away cleanly. Thin scroll outlines make it very difficult to produce clean work that's free of unsightly burrs. Shading lines are cut on the fly and are simply too thin to pencil in and follow with a graver. In that regard, we're working without a net. But with experience comes the instincts of knowing where to put the lines, and it's not as scary as it might seem. But the bottom line is, whenever you're unsure of where or how to shade, Out comes the sketchbook, and you shade different variations until you are satisfied with the result. Then pick up the graver and complete the job. At one point in my career, I thought the more shade lines you could stuff into the leaf, the better it was. I no longer believe that, as it's very easy to overshade, especially when using a microscope. Today my approach is different, and I accomplish more with less. And I'm not saying my way is the best way, it's just the best way for me. It's not always what you shade that brings good results, but what you don't shade. Notice that I often leave areas of white space below a leaf split. This provides interest and enhances the shape rather than simply filling it with lines. Learning to manage white space is part of the key to good shading. I have a comprehensive masterclass video on shading that goes into great detail on the techniques and thought processes. For now, replicating what I'm doing here will give you a very solid foundation on how it's done and provide plenty of practice for a very long time. One of the worst mistakes you can make is to get in a hurry. Each line you cut must be carefully placed and executed to the best of your ability. Speed comes naturally and builds slowly. If you're the impatient type, you have a couple of choices. Either recalibrate and slow down and concentrate, or take up something that brings instant gratification, because hand engraving isn't it. It is something you have to want and be willing to dedicate a lot of time to. Celebrate your triumphs and enjoy the fellowship of other engravers who support each other on this journey. To me, shading is the most enjoyable and satisfying part of the engraving process. It's what transforms a flat and lifeless outline into a rich and three-dimensional design that's full of life and beauty. It's also one of the most challenging parts of the process, as it requires both excellent graver control and an artistic eye. The good news is you're on the road to developing both, and they will come to you as they have come to countless other engravers.